Gilligan's Island remains one of the most iconic sitcoms of all time, whisking its quirky crew and passengers away to a deserted island, where their misadventures kept audiences laughing for decades. Yet behind the lighthearted humor lay a far more tragic reality. The real lives of the actors who brought this unforgettable show to life often ended in sorrow. In this video, we delve into the untold stories and final chapters of these beloved stars. When the cameras stopped rolling, they faced personal hardships, unexpected tragedies, and, in some cases, hauntingly heartbreaking endings. These talented individuals carved their names into television history, only to be met with fates that were anything but fair. Join us as we uncover the truth behind Gilligan's Island, where the laughter on screen stood in stark contrast to the struggles and heartbreak behind the scenes. Bob Denver, born in 1935, became a television icon as the clumsy yet lovable Gilligan on Gilligan's Island. His journey in Hollywood was bittersweet. While his portrayal of Maynard G. Krebs in The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis initially put him on the map, it was Gilligan's Island that sealed his fate in show business. Typecasting became his greatest enemy, making it difficult for him to find serious roles. Outside of acting, Denver's personal life was tumultuous. He was married 4 times, with his final marriage to Dreama Perry Denver bringing him some peace. However, his career frustrations were compounded by legal troubles, including a marijuana possession charge in the 1990s. In his later years, he largely retreated from Hollywood, finding solace in radio broadcasting and charitable work. Tragically, in 2005, he was diagnosed with throat cancer. The treatment was grueling, leaving him weakened and dependent on his family. His final days were spent in agony, battling pneumonia and post-surgical complications. He passed away at the age of 70, leaving behind a legacy of laughter. Yet his own life was often marked by sadness and the burden of a role he could never escape. Mel Blanc, born in 1908, was a master of voices, breathing life into the talkative parrot and the croaking frog in Gilligan's Island. Though his role in the series was small, his career spanned decades, making him the voice behind beloved characters like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and countless others. But behind the magic of his vocal talents lay a life fraught with challenges. In 1961, a near-fatal car crash left him in a coma, doctors unsure if he would ever speak again. It was only when someone asked, "Bugs Bunny, can you hear me?" that he stirred, responding weakly, "What's up, Doc?" His ability to recover was seen as miraculous, but the pain lingered for the rest of his days. He worked tirelessly until his death in 1989 from emphysema, the years of chain smoking finally claiming him. The world lost its man of 1,000 voices, leaving behind his devastated family and fans who could hardly imagine Saturday mornings without him. His tombstone, fittingly, bore just 3 words: "That's all, folks." Eddie Little Sky, born in 1926, was more than just a bit player in Hollywood. He was one of the few Native American actors of his era who fought to bring authenticity to indigenous roles. On Gilligan's Island, he appeared as various unnamed Native warriors, often used for comic effect, a bitter irony for a man who had dedicated his career to breaking Native stereotypes. He had roles in classic westerns like A Man Called Horse, 1970, The Great Sioux Massacre, 1965, and Soldier Blue, 1970, where he sought to give dignity to the indigenous characters he portrayed. But Hollywood had little interest in authentic representation, and he found himself typecast in the same roles, warrior, scout, nameless extra, his entire career. The battle for respect was a lifelong one, but it extended beyond the screen. He faced discrimination, financial struggles, and the painful burden of being caught between 2 worlds: the traditions of his Lakota heritage and the demands of an industry that saw Native Americans as little more than props for cowboy stories. In 1997, he passed away after suffering from emphysema, his lungs failing after years of struggle. Though his name was never widely known, his legacy endured among those who remembered his quiet fight for dignity in a world that rarely offered it. Alan Hale Jr., born in 1921, followed in the footsteps of his father, Alan Hale Sr., a respected character actor of Hollywood's golden age. Despite appearing in countless films and television shows, he was forever known as Jonas, the skipper, Grummy from Gilligan's Island. He played roles such as Agent 1 in The Good Guys, but Hollywood rarely saw him as anything other than the skipper. This one role defined his career and, in many ways, trapped him. His jovial personality made him beloved by fans, but behind the cheerful facade, he struggled with the frustrations of being unable to break free from the island. His marriage to Bettina Reed Dorr was long-lasting, yet his demanding career often kept him away from family life. In later years, he opened Alan Hale's Lobster Barrel, where he greeted fans with open arms, still embracing the role that defined him. Sadly, his life was cut short by thymus cancer, and as the disease ravaged his body, he continued to put on a brave face for those who adored him. He died in 1990 at the age of 68, remembered for his warmth and booming laughter, but few knew the heartbreak of a man who longed to be more than just the skipper. Russ Grieve, born in 1923, stepped onto Gilligans Island as the menacing headhunter and various natives, lending an air of danger to the island's already unpredictable misadventures. Though his roles in the show were brief, his career saw him appearing in cult classics like The Hills Have Eyes, 1977, and Dirty Harry, 1971. Hollywood, however, was never kind to character actors like him, men whose faces were familiar but whose names were rarely remembered. Off-screen, his life was a quiet storm of struggle, a man caught between dreams of stardom and the reality of bit parts. As time passed, the roles dried up, leaving him clinging to the fringes of the industry. In 1980, at just 56 years old, cancer stole him away, his name barely making headlines. In death, he became what Hollywood had so often made him in life, a forgotten face in the background. Jim Backus, born in 1913, was a man of many voices, yet behind his booming laughter lay a life filled with struggles. He became a household name as Thurston Howell III, the delightfully pompous millionaire on Gilligan's Island, but his career spanned far beyond that. He voiced the beloved Mr. Magoo and played memorable roles, including bad guy, in various projects. However, despite his success, his life was marred by personal demons. His marriage to Henny Backus lasted until his death, yet it was not without hardships. Backus battled alcoholism for years, a habit that strained his relationships and left him grappling with regret. As his health declined, Parkinson's disease stole the lively spirit that had once made him so beloved. He spent his final years growing weaker, his voice, once so distinctive, fading into silence. The man who had made the world laugh was left unable to enjoy his final moments, passing away in 1989 from pneumonia. He died at 76, with the echoes of his once powerful voice lost to time, his final days filled with suffering rather than the grand humor he had given to so many. Hans Conried, born in 1917, was the very embodiment of eccentricity, lending his distinctive voice and theatrical presence to the unforgettable Wrong-Way Feldman, the hapless pilot who could never seem to get his bearings. Though best known for his voice work as Captain Hook in Peter Pan, 1953, and his countless roles in radio and television, Conried's life behind the scenes was far from whimsical. He battled chronic illnesses, including heart disease, which shadowed him in his later years, stripping him of the energy that had once made him a larger-than-life presence. His marriage to Margaret Grant was long-lasting but marred by his career's relentless demands, keeping him away from home and locked in a cycle of workaholism. In 1982, he suffered a sudden and fatal heart attack, alone in his Los Angeles home. The world lost one of its great character actors, but Hollywood barely paused to mourn. The industry moved on, as it always does, and the man who had given a voice to so many was left in the echoes of old film reels and forgotten television reruns. Russell Johnson, born in 1924, was more than just the professor. He was a man haunted by loss. Best known as Professor Roy Hinckley on Gilligan's Island, Johnson had a career that spanned far beyond the shores of the stranded minnow. He played sinister roles like Bad Guy 2 in several westerns and crime dramas, his sharp features lending themselves to villains before he was cast as the brilliant yet hapless island scientist. But despite his calm and intelligent on-screen persona, his personal life was marked by profound tragedy. He served in World War II as a bombardier and was shot down over the Philippines, suffering injuries that left scars both physical and emotional. Married 3 times, he endured the most painful heartbreak a father can know: the death of his son, David, to AIDS in 1994. Johnson never truly recovered from the loss, dedicating his later years to AIDS research and advocacy, but the grief never left him. As time wore on, his body failed him, and he spent his final days battling kidney failure. He died in 2014, at the age of 89, at home, with his wife by his side. Yet, despite the love surrounding him, the ghosts of war and personal tragedy clung to him until the very end. A man forever searching for answers even the professor could not find. Denny Miller, born in 1934, was the kind of man Hollywood loved to admire but never truly cherished. Towering and golden-haired, he had the chiseled looks of a matinee idol, landing the role of Duke Williams, the handsome but dim-witted athlete, and later Tongo the Ape Man in Gilligans Island. His claim to fame was playing Tarzan in Tarzan, the Ape Man, 1959, but the role became more of a curse than a blessing. Typecast as the brawny, brainless hunk, he spent his career scraping together guest appearances on shows like Wagon Train and The Brady Bunch, never quite achieving the leading man status he had dreamed of. In his personal life, he was a man of warmth and humor, but the cruel reality of Hollywood's indifference wore him down. The industry that had once adored his physique soon discarded him as younger, fresher faces took his place. In 2014, after a long and painful battle with ALS, the disease stole from him the very thing that had once defined him: his physical strength. By the time the end came, he had long since faded from public memory, his final years spent not on red carpets, but in quiet suffering, as the world simply forgot the man who had once been Tarzan. Natalie Schafer, born in 1900, lived a life of glamour and secrecy, but behind the charm of Lovey Howell, she carried deep sorrows she rarely spoke of. She was a seasoned actress before Gilligan's Island, taking on roles such as Mom in various productions, but it was Lovey that defined her in the eyes of fans. Despite portraying the devoted wife of Thurston Howell III, her real-life marriage to actor Lewis Calhern was anything but loving. It ended in divorce, and she never remarried. Schafer kept much of her personal life private, hiding even her true age from the public. She longed for deep companionship, but was often alone, confiding only in close friends. When she was diagnosed with cancer in her later years, she refused to burden anyone with her pain, keeping her illness a secret until it was too late. She died in 1991 at the age of 90, her body frail, her once vibrant life slipping away in solitude. Despite her wealth, she had no children to inherit it, only her beloved dog, whom she made sure was cared for even after her passing. The world remembered her as the elegant Lovey Howell, but few knew the loneliness and heartbreak she carried to her grave. Charles Maxwell, born in 1913, was the unseen yet ever-present voice of the radio announcer on Gilligan's Island, the disembodied voice that tantalized the castaways with news from the outside world, news they could never act upon. Though largely unknown to the audience, Maxwell was a prolific character actor who frequently portrayed lawmen, military officers, and other authority figures in classic television shows. He appeared in numerous westerns, including Gunsmoke, Bonanza, The Rifleman, and The Wild Wild West, as well as crime dramas such as Perry Mason and the FBI. His deep, authoritative voice made him a perfect fit for voiceover roles, but despite his talent, he never achieved leading man status. Throughout his career, he battled the frustration of being typecast, and as television evolved, roles became harder to find. In his later years, he faded into near obscurity, his name barely remembered by the industry he had served so faithfully. When he passed away in 1993, it was a quiet departure, almost as if he had been forgotten by Hollywood, a bitter and ironic fate for a man whose voice had once filled the airwaves of an island that never truly existed. Dawn Wells, born in 1938, was the embodiment of sweetness and innocence as Mary in Summers, but her real life was anything but the simple, carefree existence of her beloved character. Before Gilligan's Island, she played roles like Agent 10, proving she had range beyond the farm girl next door persona. Yet, Hollywood never let her escape Mary Ann, and typecasting became her lifelong curse. Though adored by fans, her career struggled after the show ended, and her personal life fared little better. Her marriage to talent agent Larry Rosen lasted only 5 years, and she never remarried, spending much of her later life alone. Financial struggles plagued her, forcing her to seek help from a GoFundMe campaign to cover medical costs, an undignified fate for a woman once adored by millions. In 2020, the world was struck by the COVID-19 pandemic, and the virus found Wells in her final days. The disease ravaged her body, leaving her weak and isolated. Her death in an assisted living facility a stark contrast to the warm, vibrant energy she had once exuded. She passed away at 82, without children or a family legacy to carry on her name. Just the memories of Mary and, forever young on a distant island, a dream of innocence that reality could never truly match. Vito Scotti, born in 1918, was the quintessential character actor, his face instantly recognizable, though his name often forgotten. On Gilligans Island, he brought to life the eccentric Dr. Boris Balinkoff, the sinister yet humorous mad scientist, as well as voicing a cat in one of the series' surreal episodes. But Scotti was far more than just a guest star on a sitcom. He appeared in countless classic films and television series, from The Godfather, 1972, where he played Nazarene the Baker, to Columbo, Hogan's Heroes, and Batman. His ability to slip into roles of various ethnicities, Italians, Spaniards, Arabs, was both a gift and a curse, as Hollywood often limited him to stereotypical portrayals rather than offering him leading roles. Off-screen, his life was filled with hardship. His first wife, Irene, passed away, leaving him devastated, and despite his professional success, there was always a feeling of being undervalued in an industry that thrived on disposable talent. As he aged, illness overtook him, and in 1996, cancer stole away his life. The once vibrant, comedic chameleon faded into a quiet passing, his final years spent in the shadows of an industry that had long since moved on. Tina Louise, born in 1934, was the sultry, red-haired enchantress who brought Ginger Grant to life on Gilligan's Island, the Hollywood bombshell stranded in a world far too small for her ambitions. Though her performance cemented her as a pop culture icon, she loathed the role, feeling it typecast her as nothing more than a vapid sex symbol. She had once been a rising star, earning praise for her work in God's Little Acre, 1958, but Gilligan's Island became an anchor that weighed down the rest of her career. Bitterly, she refused to reprise her role in later reunions, trying in vain to distance herself from the show that had made her famous but also trapped her in an image she despised. Her personal life was a storm of disappointments. Her marriage to radio host Les Crane was short-lived and ended in acrimony, leaving her to raise their daughter alone. Hollywood was not kind to women who aged, and as her youthful beauty faded, so did the roles. Though still alive, she lives in quiet obscurity, watching as time erases the last remnants of the world she once knew. The glitz and glamour of old Hollywood, now just a memory slipping through her fingers like sand. Janos Prohaska, born in 1919, was a man of immense talent who spent much of his career hidden behind elaborate costumes and masks. As the gorilla and various other creatures on Gilligan's Island, he brought to life the wild and bizarre characters that often terrorized or baffled the stranded castaways. His gift for physical performance made him Hollywood's go-to man for portraying animals, monsters, and extraterrestrials, earning him roles in Star Trek, The Outer Limits, Bewitched, and Lost in Space. He was a genius in his craft, designing and creating his own costumes to ensure that his performances were as realistic as possible. Yet, despite his unparalleled skill, his name was rarely recognized, his face never seen, and his contributions often overlooked. Tragedy struck on March 13, 1974, when Prohaska and his son, Robert, boarded a chartered plane in California, en route to a film shoot. The aircraft never reached its destination. It crashed in flames near Bishop, California, killing all on board. Father and son perished together in a horrific blaze, a tragic and sudden end to a man who had spent his entire career bringing imaginary creatures to life, only to be consumed by the all-too-real horror of fire and steel. What do you think about the deaths of the actors from Gilligan's Island, and who do you miss the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to watch the latest videos.